Happy Monday, Elkhart County. Thanks for being here with Triple P Live. I'm kind of dreading doing this with my allergy voice, but this isn't going away anytime soon, so I thought we would just dive right in. So if you've been, let's see, we had a week off last week, and other than that, we've been focusing on relationships through August and September and talking about the ways that how we manage our relationships affects our children, how we manage our stress, how we manage resolving conflict in our relationships. So if you'll think back over the last several weeks, we've talked about noticing our own triggers, times that we might be particularly upset, or things that might really get to us. And we've talked about then noticing that little split second between the thing that happens and our emotion about it, and what is our thought about that little event. And thinking about whether we can, if we can change that little thought, can we change the way we feel about the whole situation? I've talked about assertive communication, so not just giving in and not being aggressive, but asserting our needs, stating our needs, and then being able to also hear the other person's. We also talked with Scott Berkey about difficult co-parenting situations, and he gave us some more tips on that little thought, how we examine that little thought. Do we kind of put it on trial, I think is what he said. So today we're going to get to... So what do we do? You know, we've said don't have these conversations at difficult times and stuff like that, but obviously we're going to have these conversations. These things don't go away. So what are some of the tricks to that? So the first one is to avoid what we call the escalation trap. So we talk about escalation traps in normal Triple P parenting stuff a lot. So a child escalation trap, let's say, is your child is whining and whining, and you're ignoring them and you're saying no, and then eventually you say, okay, fine, just take it, just stop whining. Okay, they always say, and what has your child learned in that situation? They've learned that if they just whine more, they'll get what they want. And so the next time they might whine a little bit longer. And then when you kind of try to break that cycle, they can really whine for a long time because it's always worked to just try a little bit harder. Eventually they'll give in. So that's what we call the child escalation trap. They're learning to escalate to get what they want. Then we have the parent escalation trap. So I say, please get off that video game. It's time to eat. My kids don't do it. I say, get off that game. It's time to eat. Eventually I get so mad, I just yell at them. And then they say, okay, fine, Mom, just calm down. And they get off the video game. Now the little Triple P video says, and what is the parent learning in that situation? I'm learning that I have to escalate to get them to do what I want. And we have a lot of interventions to help parents learn to avoid that particular escalation trap, where we learn that the only way to get our kids to listen is to escalate. Now this happens in relationships too. So two people, co-parents, whoever we are, we're having a conversation, and one person gets louder and more aggressive or just more stubborn, and the other person eventually gives in. Now, part of what's going on here is both people are being rewarded. So the louder, more aggressive one or the more stubborn one gets what they want. Okay, so they just got rewarded for that behavior of trying to back the other person down. The more submissive one also gets rewarded. The conflict ends. There's kind of a superficial peace. Nobody's mad at each other anymore. It doesn't feel good, but there is actually a reward. There is some incentive to do that again. Boy, if I just give in, at least it's all over. So we're talking about avoiding the escalation trap. We don't want that. It can be a form, they say, of family violence. Like that pattern repeated over and over again can be really damaging to a relationship. So what are we supposed to do? So first of all, the more angry, aggressive one, I think that one's a little bit more obvious. Like that person needs to, you know, if you are that person, if you're ever that person, even if you're not always that person, you know, catch yourself, calm yourself, and learn that assertive communication where you are stating your needs and also respecting the needs of the other person. If you're the one that tends to give in and you'd rather just keep the peace, you also have a role in helping to resolve this kind of conflict situation, and that is to state those assertive, to state your needs, to practice that assertive communication. And one of the other things you can do is to delay difficult conversations until a good time. So if you know that this is just situation, I'm about to back down, the other person's getting angrier, that can be a good time to say, I'm too upset to talk about this right now. Let's talk about this after dinner. So think about what those times are for you. And my house is right before dinner. Everybody's hungry, everybody's tired, everybody's trying to get stuff done, everybody's, you know, everything's just kind of crazy. And to have a reasonable conversation at that time is just not going to happen. So we're just going to all get done what we need to get done, and we're going to have this discussion after dinner. Something that I can say. Maybe before bed, child really wants to talk about something for the next day. That might be an appropriate time, but it might not. If everybody is upset, have the conversation another time. And you can say that. You can say, I'm too upset to talk about this, or I think we should wait till tomorrow, or I just can't do this right now. Let's talk tomorrow. But don't make it out of desperation. You're taking control of the situation by saying that. You're not just delaying it. You are, but not just for the sake of not talking about it. You're kind of hoping to get there. In certain situations, you can say, what would be a good time for you to talk about this? You can say, I'm just going to step away for half an hour and then we'll come back. You figure out what that is for you. But when everybody is up here, in one of the Triple P videos, she says, we are all on the ceiling and you can't discuss anything when you're all on the ceiling. And then when you do come back together, whether that's as a couple, whoever that is, or as a whole family, make that a problem-solving discussion. So some ways you can do that are clearly state the problem and the goal. Let's say it's a situation between me and my partner, and I say, I really was upset by the way you undermined me and said that our daughter could go to a sleepover when I already said she couldn't. Okay, there's the problem. I've stated it in terms of it upset me. This is how I saw things. The goal, I'd like to come up with a solution for how we can figure this out in the future, because that didn't feel good. However you want to say it. That can be an opportunity. Then you will want to listen and hear the other person's perspective. And then start coming up with solutions. How could we handle this next time? Maybe we should never give a yes or a no until we've had this discussion. Maybe we should, have a certain way we want our daughter to ask. Like she needs to have us both in the same place when she asks a question. However we're going to do that, that is going to cut down on these kinds of conflicts. Because often it's not a once-off. If it's a once-off, we probably let it go. If it's a pattern, that's why we're having this discussion. So this could, in this situation, be a family meeting. Maybe this is a couple meeting, maybe this is a family meeting. So come up with all the solutions. We could have a written contract that she has to get 2 signatures on every time. You can go wherever you want to with this, but write them all down. Somebody, if you're doing this as a family, your daughter might say, you should just always let me do whatever I want. Okay, write it down. It's not gonna make it to the final cut, but we'll write it down for now. And then think of the pros and cons of each solution and come up with something that works for everybody in some way. Most of the time it's not going to be a perfect solution for either person, but it's going to be reasonable. And that's kind of how it's a good solution for both of you. Some helpful rules can be to, for this kind of discussion, is that only one person talks at a time. Maybe you have an object you pass around, whatever you need. If you're holding a discussion that was too difficult to discuss at a certain time, it's probably kind of a tough thing and you might need some rules. Keeping the discussion brief and focused on that one thing. So that this is not a time to say, and you also, and you also, and you never, and you always, we're going to talk about this particular problem. We've named the problem. We've named the goal. We're going to come up with this. And then, kind of what I've already talked about, brainstorming solutions, thinking of the pros and cons, choosing one, and then checking back in. This is often a step in Triple P family meetings and problem solving and behavior contracts, is having a time where you check back in and say, this is how this is working for me. How's it working for you? We've done well with this aspect of it. We've not done well with this aspect of it. And coming back together and having that discussion. So that kind of does conclude our relationship series with this COVID-19 tip sheet that Triple P put out. I really, really invite further conversation. If these are not helping, if there are more problems, please seek further help. Reach out to us. We can connect you. There are all kinds of ways in this community to get more help. If you do have good luck with them, please let us know about it. We can be reached at 574-226-0160 or info@triplepelkhartcounty.org. This is our Facebook page. We have a YouTube page. We love to hear from you, so let us know how things are going, and stay well. I hope this is a positive parenting week.